Hello and good morning. Yeah, so I'm still not feeling well. It's crazy. It's 2 weeks now. But no matter. And I'm super tired. Oscar, the tiny one, he's not been sleeping well. So been up at like 5 in the morning. And it's so we'll see how this goes, because I'm like really tired. Like it's affecting my concentration. But we'll try. Anyways, we should be streaming in 4K now. So this is let's see how this turns out. And I did test like inviting like a colleague, which was myself yesterday, and that seems to be working great as well. So I think we have a pretty good setup now. And what I thought we could do is take a look at the latest version. Let's see. Yeah, I've been, let's see. First of all, let's just reset this thing. What was that? Yeah, you see, I can't even remember now. It's 4 set. No, what was the Git Reset hard? Oh my god. I'm just going to double check that we have everything up to date. Let's close this. And let me show you the last stuff I worked on. I actually think we have a pick state command. Oh, this is old stuff. Why hasn't it updated? This is weird. Git log, add docs and base state and lifting transitions. Maybe I didn't actually remove it. Let me just double check locally here. What the hell did I do? Oh, yeah, sorry, I was confused. There's nothing called pick state command anymore. So we'll fix that. Maybe we can fix it right away. Pick state command. Pick state command. No, yeah, exactly. Sorry about that. Yeah, so let me show you like the final. I think this is the final proposal. And what I had to figure out was related to expressing these state creators, because there's this way of, so when you create these creators, they take params, right? They need to like produce the state, and then sometimes that's just a single value. Other times it might be more complex. So you have like a params argument, which is an object of multiple values or properties. But then if you move in that direction, you are encouraged to spread it. So let me show you. Oh, well, I can just show you in here. So you would like states. So you would have like params here, and you would like spread them in here. Now the problem with doing that is that from the outside you're building these states using existing state. So what could happen here is that you might be moving into foo from bar, for example, and then you would actually use the existing bar state and then pass some values into foo, and you would just like pass the bar state in there because it just happens to use the same values. And that's a tricky thing about TypeScript and spreading. It's dangerous. It's very, very dangerous, because what would happen in this case is that I'm setting state, and then I would spread the params, which means that it actually changes back to bar again, as that's kind of included passing in the params. The params isn't typed with the state property, but it's typed with the shared value, the shared property. And from TypeScript's perspective, that's perfectly fine. I wish there was like a strict, like a rule for, maybe there is a TypeScript rule that doesn't allow spreading. That's rough. It's not about not allowing it. It's more to highlight when a spread causes you to. So, for example, if you were to call foo manually, you would be and you would try to pass in a property that's invalid based on the typing of the params, TypeScript would yell at you. But if you were to spread an object that has those properties, but additional properties, that would be just fine. And that's the problem. That's the kind of rule I want, where the spreading causes you to pass in more properties than what's strictly compatible with the function. Anyways, so what I ended up doing is we take a look at the patterns here. We have these creators, action creators, and here it's perfectly fine to do spreading because this is like these params isn't based on something else. And the same for the commands. You can do spreading here if you want to. But when it comes to the states, you always want to destructure them. And it's a nice thing because it describes better as well exactly the return type. It's more explicit. Oh, by the way, I want the command to be last. Let's see it like this. Yeah, let's do that here as well. Sorry about that. Yes. So where were we? Yes. So you explicitly insert all the properties. So now you can spread as much as you want into the state creator, but it will always extract exactly the properties you intend. And the reason I went back and forward on this, and I did quite a few times, is that this can get quite hairy. Like you might have 5 different properties here. So you're defining 5 different typings, one typing for 5 different properties here. And then you destructure them and then you insert them. So you actually describe the properties 3 times, and it gets very like vertical, and it gets blurry. So I wanted to find a good way to express that, and the pattern I'm using is just called base state, and this is actually something we do in CodeSandbox projects, like in the code. Is that very often you have some state that's being used across the different states. So that's called base state. In this case, base state is just any kind of value that might be in any state. So it's basically all values across all states. So we're using Overmind. There's a question about Overmind. We're using Overmind in version 1, and we're not 100% sure of our strategy of how version 1 fits in with CodeSandbox projects. We are going to explore something in CodeSandbox projects before we decide on the exact strategy there. But in terms of version 1, that will run with Overmind. But I have a feeling that there's a lot of discussion here, and the whole team has to agree on the approach forward. But to me, I have a feeling that we are going to find a way to reimagine sandboxes in CodeSandbox projects. And if we go down that path, it means that we'll actually deprecate version 1 at some point. Like this is in the future, where of course you'll keep all your work, but you rather work on it in within the new CodeSandbox, which is using a more low-level React implementation, which is what React States is. Yeah. But yes, I have no idea at this point, but that's just my current thoughts on that. Yeah, let's fix that typo. Base state, where was it? Base state, there we go. Yes, so in this case though, we have a base state where we define the values across all states. And then when we define the state creators, we just pick which properties to be used for this specific state. And that really cleans up the typing, and it gives the benefit of kind of seeing, okay, what are actually all the values available. Yeah, it just sets you up a bit better. And then I added some documentation on like lifting transitions. Yeah, so lifting transitions is basically just the concept of, instead of inlining all the actions and stuff, you have the possibility to lift transitions up to specific states. So in this case, we're defining them for foo and bar, where you have like the transition handlers, and then you can lift even further. So you actually have like a single transition. So it's just explaining like how you can do that. No matter. Yes. So there's nothing. Let's just commit this stuff. Update API and patterns. Yeah, that's perfectly fine. Cool. So the project I've been working on is like we have a reference project which is called Family Scrum. So I'm just going through it now and making sure that it fits with the pattern. So maybe we can do a bit of that work together, and we can take a look at how things actually looks like. So here we have the session hook, which has a couple of actions. It has a command for checking versions, and these are the version states. I should maybe document this as well, like substates. So this is related to like checking the version. And here we go. We should adjust this to new version and version. New version. There we go. And then we have the actual states, which is, there's quite a few of them. And currently, like I intend to have this flow in Family Scrum. Like currently I hard code the families and the users. Like you just log in and then I go into the database. But the idea is like you open it up, and if you don't have a family, you can create one and invite someone and so on and so on. But I only have like the states for that. There's no logic. So we are just going to fix. So when it's just two properties, I just inline it like this. If there are like three properties, then I move into like the base state concept. Cool. So here we have, and it's kind of interesting then how the authentication works here, because sometimes when you build an application, you do the authentication first, and you don't actually run any of the app while doing the authentication. It's like if you're authenticated, you move into the actual app and you have like a spinner or something. I didn't want that experience here. So what actually happens here is that you go into like a skeleton mode, and then or you actually go into the dashboard, and then the dashboard has its own set of states to deal with the session state. So that you kind of feel that you're going straight into the application. Anyways, so this is no matter the core authentication state, where most of it is related to the authentication happening in the environment. And originally this app had like, you could test it as a single user, but then you kind of moved into a family and stuff. So there's some stuff related to that here. But the intention is that when, well, I don't know if this app will ever get out, to be honest. It's only my partner and me using it at the moment, which is perfectly fine. Anyways, so when it's verifying authentication, there are different things that can happen when you're signing in. There's different things that can happen, and then we're signed in. And that's really nice now. Like when you actually express the transition, it's very precise. This is what happened from the outside. This is the state I want to produce. It's super precise. Yeah, and then we have some effects here. Blah, blah, blah. And that is the session. And then we have the to-do item. And I think this one is actually not using the... Let's see. Yeah, and this one's actually quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, we can talk a little bit about this one. Like there's a link in the documentation of React states to the code here, so you can check it out yourself. But it's actually quite interesting. Yeah, so this has quite simple state. The to-do state doesn't really take any params. As you're creating, it's just like showing a to-do, and then you have a to-do with a checklist where you actually can do some stuff. Yeah, but that's fine. But what I wanted to show is like how this logic is actually produced, or how the state is produced. It's really interesting. So you should probably have seen the UI here. Maybe I can show it on my phone, because this is probably not runnable right now. Let's see if I can show you. Yeah, let's see. So let's see, add checklist item. Yeah. What the hell did I click now? Oh shit. There we go. Okay, so on my phone, can you see that? Yeah, so you see like the second item there is a to-do item, and then I have expanded the list. I can collapse and expand it, but when it's expanded, I can also like click the bottom thing there, add new item, and then it actually moves into a state where I'm adding a new item. And typically you would just express that with, for example, is adding new item. That would be like a Boolean flag. But then when you're adding a new item, you also have an input value there. So the input value, like if you think about how you would describe that state, you would have an optional is adding new item, but you would also have like new item title. But that new item title isn't valid when you're not adding a new item. So we are actually expressing it correctly here. So what we're doing is that, yeah, sorry, I don't know how well you saw that. But and you can argue that why do you have to deal with, isn't that perfectly fine to just express the state that way? And yeah, it's not like, I'm not saying that you can't do that, like you're a bad programmer or anything if you do that. But it isn't correct. Like it's not describing the intent. So when you call add checklist item, the only time you should really be able to do that is when the checklist is expanded. If you're adding a checklist item and the checklist is collapsed, you shouldn't be able to do that, right? It doesn't make any sense that happening. So we just return the state, so nothing happens. But if it is expanded, we go and we check what's the state of adding an actual item. And if that is inactive, we just return the current state. Like you shouldn't be able to do anything. But if it's active, then we actually move into to do with checklist again, where we say that the checklist is expanded, and now it's inactive, like the adding a new item is inactive, because what happens when you click the button is that we actually add the item, we close the input again. So we're changing the state of the adding the item, and then we run a command for actually adding the checklist item. So this is actually describing all these states and guarding that you aren't able to do this unless you have the prerequisite states. And it's such a simple example, and you can argue that why go through that when you can just use like a Boolean flag. And that's arguably an important factor, that you can just simply do it with Boolean flags and having values that aren't really valid. But since you're kind of putting it together in the UI, and well, the button is only there when the flag is true, so of course it's possible to add it. And yeah, that's perfectly true. But the state doesn't describe your intention in the UI. Yes, so I just wanted to show you an example of how the matcher actually allows you to ensure that a complicated UI which has like substates, you can actually use the matcher to go down those substates and ensure that you're actually in the correct state to perform the state transition. Okay, so this one looks good. The one of the hooks I didn't change is this one, so maybe we could do that together, so you kind of see how the suggested API works. So let me just take a quick look here. Source state, yeah. So we have source. Yeah, I think we can use space state here. Is that? No, I don't think there's any reason to do that. Yeah, so all of these states actually uses the ref. Yeah, I think we can try this. String video ID. Okay, so this is all the kind of state we can have. And now let's produce these states as creators instead, state creators. So we have loading, state loading as const. And this one can now take pick base state. And this one only takes the ref. And then we have loaded. I can do it like this. And loaded actually takes base state, takes the ref or the source. Oh, state as const. And then we have ref and source here. And then we have captured. Which has the same, I guess. Pick base state, ref or source as const, and then we have ref and source, ref source, and then we have not found, which only has the ref. Let's just put that right in there. Oops. Pick base state, ref state as const, and we have the ref not found. Now we have capturing, which has the ref and the video ID. Yeah, so what I like about this is if you see the previous typing as well, you see that like by reading the state, you don't really know what's there. And you have to like mentally combine this together. While with these creators now, you know exactly how the state looks like by just looking at the state creator. Let's see, capture ref and video ID, where we pick the base state of ref or video ID as cons and ref and video ID. Cool. Video ID. There we go. Okay, so this state is now return type of states, and it just validates that it's actually valid states that's being returned. And as we can see, everything looks good. And then we have the actions. So with this pattern, I have a tendency to put the actions at the top. So let's see, we have a start capture action, and that's expressed with a type, and then it takes a video ID, which is a string, and we'll put that on there. And then we have a capture, which also takes a video ID. Type as const video ID. And then the actions we have are the return types of type of action, where we want to ensure that they are actually actions. And it looks good. Okay, so now we have our states. We don't need this one. And we have capture handler. Oh yeah, this is the old API, so I'm just trying to think of how we express this now. So let's call it capture transition. Yeah, would I call it capture transitions? I don't think we actually need to express it like this. I think this was a limitation, so we can do, yeah, start. I think we could just call it start capture, like that. And what we're going to do is we're just going to express this thing. Let's put that in there. So this is like old stuff. So let's remove this. One thing I forgot was export const states. Let's destructure the states so we have all of them. And this is actually like, it's kind of funny, like doing Firebase images. It's actually super complex. And like what I've added here as well is the ability to either load an image from Firebase, and then you can take a new image from your phone, and then that replaces it in Firebase. So it's actually a complicated piece of thing. But the point is, we wanted this to, what was the states that this was going to, yeah, maybe we can just reason about it. So if the state is, I kind of hate that, yeah. Oh, sorry, this should be peak state. So when we are loaded, you should be able to start a capture. If it's not found, you should be able to start a capture. And if it's captured, you should be able to start a capture. You should not be able to do that when we are capturing or when we're loading. And then it takes a video ID, and we just type that manually. And then this is going to move into a capturing state, which needs a ref, state.ref, and the video ID. Cool. And we can also see that it's actually starting the camera here as a command. This is old stuff, so we need to express this a little bit differently. So let's see. Capturing should be able to call a command to start the camera. So where are the, oh yeah, we haven't expressed any commands here. So let's just do that first. So we have a command, start camera. Start camera as const. And I guess, what did it take? Did it take a video ID? Yeah. So let's, it requires a video ID. And then let's just create a command type. And it's exactly the same, return types, type of commands, and here it should fit with the iCommand shape. And what we wanted to do is, when we move into capturing, this should be able to also take a command. And the suggested pattern for this is that the second argument is the command. And it's typically optional, where we just pick the command. In this case, start camera. And then you add that command using the symbol. And this will allow us to use that command. So let's call it commands, start camera, video ID, and then poof. It is a lot more precise, that's for sure. Okay, before we forget now, we have to express that we can, we need to like call the camera. So I'm just going to fix this at the bottom here so we don't forget. And let's use DevTools, capture reducer. This is just React States DevTools. Yeah, this is failing now as we're refactoring, but we start camera, and this should give us a video ID shortly, where we go and call the capture API, start camera, video ID, like this. So this should go green shortly. Let's see. Yeah, so what's interesting about this is we don't, yeah. So this is interesting. Like, we don't need to use a command for this, because whenever we move into capturing, let's double check that. Do we actually move into capturing in any other? No. So the point is that whenever we move into capturing, that's when we want to start the camera. So we don't need to add this complexity of the command, really. We can just use the normal state effect for that. So whenever we move from this into capturing, then we start the camera. So this is also something that the previous command concept was very much, especially when I had the environment stuff, it was kind of leaning towards using commands instead of state effects. But it's much more natural to use state effects. So whenever we move into capturing, go in and start the camera. Like, that's what we're expressing. Yeah, so that camera might be, start camera thing might be removed. But okay, so let's express the transitions, T transitions, with our state and our action, where we have, let's just move all of them in there. Let's see how we can clean this up a little bit, where the reducer now is just the state, the action, and we transition that state and action, that state and action using our transitions. Cool. Okay, so this is not expressed like this anymore. We don't have this stuff, it's much simpler. Okay, so when we get an image success, we check if it's if it is the image we're actually looking for, because all the reducers gets all the events from the environment. So we have to make sure that the event actually matches this specific reducer, because it might be multiple of them. And if that's the case, what we want to do is move into the loaded state, where we give it the ref and the source. Hello, Sigi. Cool. Yeah, and sorry. So the type we're missing here is the actual event environment event. So this reducer doesn't only deal with the actions, but it also deals with the environment events. So that reminds me, we have to do one more thing down here related to our little refactor, is that we need to subscribe to the to the events coming from the environment, and that's as simple as emitter subscribe, and then we can do it down here. It's as simple as just subscribing and dispatching the events into the reducer. So this is all you need to do. You just subscribe to the emitter, and it dispatches into the reducer, and then the reducer will get any environment event. And then we'll remove this, and this is going to transition into not found, and this is just state. What's happening here? Oh, don't we have not found? Did I forget to? Oh, it actually takes the ref. Sorry. There we go. Yes, and when we are loaded, we can start a capture. When it's not found, we can start a capture. And the thing we're going to do now as well is that we're actually going to bring in start capture and capture into the actual states where they are valid. So the loaded, not found, and captured state is going to have the start capture. So that's loaded, and this should now be able to do. This should start a capture. This should start a capture, and this can start a capture. So we're putting the action creators. Yeah, jet lagged. Yeah, that's rough. But then you kind of have talking about kids. That's the state you're in most of the time. It's like being jet lag, like having chronic jet lag. That's the best way to describe having kids. So I kind of feel the same. I'm not jet lagged, but Oscar woke up at 5 in the morning for 2 days, and that also makes you jet lagged. Yes, so we're putting the action creators that's available to you for each state. So that means that this should start yelling now, right? It expects us to actually add the start capture action, because we said that those action creators are available, and that didn't work. Oh, it's called capture. Oh, sorry. It should be start capture. Sorry, not capture. My bad. So now it's happy. And then we have capture, which is 16. Yeah. I'm trying. Sometimes I'm kind of looking forward to the kids getting older, but then I know there's a lot of awesome stuff happening at like every age, and you kind of have to try to force yourself to enjoy it. But I slip sometimes. I'm like, oh my god, just one more year and things will get easier. And in some sense it will, but you'll also lose some stuff. So it's important to think about the stuff you lose, even though it's a bit rough. Yes, so we want to express that we are going to capture when we are in our capturing state. So that means we'll go in and we'll pick the capture action creator. So that's available on the capturing state, and we'll see how we're going to use this shortly. So that means it tells us that we need to, it forces us to have the capture action here, or deal with the capture action. And then what this does is, yeah, so this puts us still in the capturing state. Maybe we can just destructure that, ref video ID. And then, yeah, so this is interesting. So in this case, when we are capturing and we click capture, or like you actually capture in the camera, we still want to stay in the capturing state, because now we just want to like tell the camera that we're capturing, and then the camera will tell us when it's done doing the capture, and that's when we actually move into the captured state. So this is a good place to use a command. Like what we could do is we could introduce a new state here, because there really is another state, which is the new state. It would be like not capturing, but awaiting camera or something like that. Await camera capture. So we could, like, when we're capturing and we do a capture, we move into await camera capture, and that would actually we would use a state effect to call the camera to do a capture, and then we would wait for this event, which moves us into captured. And this is like, there's no right or wrong answer to this. It's just how you choose to think about it and model it. But since we're kind of looking at the API here, so here we could actually do a command. So we want to stay in a capturing state until the camera is actually done capturing. So let's do that. And what we're going to do is change our command. This is not start camera, this is actually a capture now. And we don't really need to express the size here, but it does need a video ID, which it has. Okay. But then we have to allow the capturing state to actually deal with a command. So let's go and do that. So we have a command, pick command, command capture, and then we allow that command to run if it's defined. So now when we're capturing, we're going to call that command with the video ID. And then we'll just keep in mind 100, 100. Let's remove all this. Like, you see how much more precise it becomes. It's, yeah, I really like this. So let's use the command effect to, we have a capture command, and this capture command holds the video ID. And what we want to do, we want to tell the camera to capture using the video ID, and then it was 100, 100. Oh. What was the signature? Oh yeah, 100, 100. That's the size. Cool. So now we're, whenever we do a capture, we keep ourselves in the capturing state with the same ref and video ID, but we run the capture command. And when the environment tells us that the capture has occurred, then we are going to move into the captured state. And now it has actually given us the source. So, but we should get some help here. So we still need the ref, and we need the source, and we get the ref from the state. Cool. So that's basically the ref, how it changed. So we have our action creators, which allows us the outside to start a capture and ask for an actual capture. So start capture is like firing up the video element towards the camera, and then capture is actually taking the image. And then we have a command, which is to actually perform the capture. And we have our base state, which describes all possible values in our state. And then we describe these set of states where we use the base state to pick what properties are necessary in each of these states, so that we can do our destructure to ensure that we describe the exact state or return the exact state, so that we don't do any spreading, which could cause us to add properties that's actually not valid, and worst case, actually overriding properties. So this looks pretty nice. Cool. Yes, so now we have that use image. So let's spend the last minutes looking at how we, maybe we can go to edit dinner. I think that's the last one I was looking at. So yes, so edit dinner actually gets an instance of the image. And you can see we have image dispatch here, where we start a capture. And let's see, render image from source. Yeah, so we're matching on the image state to kind of figure out how should we display, what should we display. So when we're loading an image, I just display this loading indication. And if it's loaded, I render the image from source. If it's captured, I render the image from source. If I'm capturing, I'm showing the video element. And here, so I guess this is a good way to start. So here we should now have capture. So this is the action creator. So what we're going to do is, instead of expressing it like that, we're going to say capture, and we just pass in the ID. So this is even more precise. And then we have not found. And again, we have our action creator exposed with this state. So we can do the same thing here. State dinner ID. And we'll do this thing, make it as precise as possible. Cool. And we'll fix these other dispatches as well. But one thing we're going to do is render image from source. We're actually going to use, since this is a function that's based on these states, we're actually going to pick the state. And we need to use the image state here. So what I've been doing is, oops, not session, but use image, is that from this, let's clean this up. So from this hook, what I do is that I actually export type state, image, is it called image? Yeah, image state equals state. And then export type image action equals action. So I export them with their names, so that when I'm using them in other contexts, here I want to say image state, it's able to pick it up. And this was supposed to be used in the loaded and the captured state. And captured. So now we're saying that now this is happy because we do indeed have the correct typing. And then we can say, now we also have our start capture here, state dinner ID. We can remove all of this. Cool. So this is like the image stuff, but we also have our dinner that we're dealing with. Is it called? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we're destructuring. So we have our state and the dispatch here as well. So let's see how we're using that. So now we have name changed. So I think we actually have everything available to us. So I'm going to destructure this. We're going to actually, yeah, look at this. We have a lot of stuff here. So we have the dinner. Oh, we have the dinner up there as well. Yeah, this is interesting because that's basically the same. Yeah, we should rename this. So this is like, what should we call it? Initial dinner? Yeah, well, it is. Like, it's the initial dinner. Let's just rename that. Then we pass in the... Yeah, we should probably call it initial dinner here as well. It emphasizes that it's you might have it or not. Just like you have initial state, you have initial dinner. What we could also do, we could like move out this whole thing so that you would just pass in the initial state. So if we had a dinner, we would pass in a different initial state. But I think it's better to have it inside here in case it's used multiple places. Where were we? Were we here? Yeah. And now we can start destructuring a lot of stuff here. Yeah, so the thing is like about the destructuring, often you don't really want to do it all the way up here because you might be matching on the state. So it's better to do it like this, where I'm not sure exactly everything we need here. At least we need dinner. That I know that. So we can say dinner. Cool. Dinner. And now we have name changed. That at least we need that one. So the thing about this refactor is like I would write it like this immediately typically. So let's see. Dispatch name change event target value. And then we can remove all of this. And then we have description change down here. There's a lot of dinner stuff. I should probably have like shown you the app first, but currently it's in a broken state due to this huge refactor. But it's nice. Like when you develop, I'm hesitant. Like, well, I guess we can call it a library. When you develop libraries, you really have to. There's so many ideas that make so much sense in your head, but you really have to battle test it. That's why that's like part of my, I don't know, it's a chicken and egg thing. What comes first? Is it because I build applications that I get ideas on how to express things arguably better, or do I have ideas for ways to express things arguably better and then I come up with projects to validate the idea? It's probably a mix. But no matter, it's super important. Also for people like using libraries, just to see, like there's so much more than the API of a library. It's more how you use it. And that's something that's hard to express in documentation. You kind of just have to see it in the wild. So that's why it's nice to have these reference projects. So this is one of them. And then the Excalibur Firebase thing is also going to be one of those reference projects. New ingredient name changed. Dispatch event target value. Cool. And we have add ingredient. Let's see, let's bring that out as well. Maybe it's probably all of them. Maybe I should just add all of them, and then we'll. It's like, this is like, I'm surprised how, like, this is the thing, like looking at the the UI, it doesn't look very complex, but it's actually insanely complex. And I guess this is the story of doing development. It's like how surprising it is, how complex things are. So we don't need state dinner here. Yeah, so a new ingredient name. Let's bring that out as well. New ingredient name. Yeah, let's just bring everything out there. New blah 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 validation. So this is also an interesting thing. So in this structure of editing a dinner, you can argue I just have like an editing state. I don't have like a valid and invalid state. I rather use that as a substate. So it does do validation when I do actions, but it's on this substate called validation. So either it's valid or it's invalid, but you could put it as the main states. Like, it's not editing, but it's like valid and invalid. And yeah, and there again, there's no like right answer. It's just how you think about stuff. But what happens here, what's good about like having these guarded things, is that I do allow now you to save at any time, even though it's invalid. We have the save action. But internally, of course, it doesn't actually do the save if it's not valid. And thinking about like exposing these action creators on the state to know what actions are available in what state, I will probably do the other way around here, where we do a valid and invalid state, because then you would only have the save action when it's actually valid. It would express better the intent. Yeah, so maybe we could I think I kind of need to go through this and make the app run again, and then maybe we could like revisit this as we kind of learn, and just talk about how to structure state and so on and so on. Yeah, so here you see we actually match on the state. Yeah, I think I actually, yeah, that's kind of funny. There's absolutely no reason to match here. I think this has been refactored a couple of times. So let's just remove that. Sorry, it should be like this. There we go. Because we're always editing, so it doesn't matter. Let's see, where were we? Description change, new ingredient name, dispatch add ingredient, dinner groceries length, blah, blah, blah. Here we have dispatch, remove ingredient, which takes an index, remove ingredient, index. Cool. Here we have our, let's get through this before I stop the stream. Yeah, this is a long one. A new preparation item description changed. This takes event target.value. Then we can do this. Don't need a state up here. Yeah, and this is a pretty long component as well. I should probably have split this up a little bit. Dinner, dispatch. Let's just do remove preparation item, which takes an index. And then we have the instructions. It's kind of cool how this dinner concept works. It's like you add a dinner, you can take a picture of the dinner, of course give the name and the description, and then you add what groceries it needs, how to prep it, and then how to actually create it. And this is a thing, like the family scrum thing is about helping like parents really to plan better. Like things are better when you plan. You at least like a week ahead, you talk about what's happening next week, what should you do, what should I do. And just this dinner thing of just having a prep list is kind of interesting, because that means that someone can prepare the dinner like the day before, and then the other person creates it the day after. And so everything kind of ties into that. And also like when we have the groceries list, we for the dinner, we also have like a shopping list. So when we kind of plan in a dinner, we can create functionality which allows you to kind of put the groceries of the dinner into the shopping list, for example. And even the preparation list could actually be turned into a to-do with a checklist. So we can do all sorts of cool stuff. But that's just fun to explore. Instruction changed. Event target value. Oh, this actually instruction and then index. Cool. There we go. We're almost there. Remove instruction. Add the instruction. Again, this is the same UI, so you kind of, I don't always have the next item open. You actually click first to add a new item. And that, like, it really adds complexity to the UI. And then we have our validation, and then we have save. Yeah, so what we can do here though is, so I'll show you something interesting. So we're going to remove these ones, and then we're actually going to do this. We're going to match on validation, and if it's invalid, we're going to return an object of disabled true, and well, there's no on click. And when it is valid, we are going to say disabled false, and then we're actually going to add an on click here. And this on click is going to be the dispatch of save. So this is also a way you can do it, and it should give yeah, I guess it doesn't, I'm not sure if it actually gives errors on the, yeah, that's kind of interesting though. It accepts, maybe, yeah, again, it's probably because I'm spreading or something that it doesn't actually give error on these things. Yeah, that's interesting. Because you could, yeah, you probably have to type this explicitly. Did this take actually match? Yeah, no, we would have to like, yeah, you would kind of have to bring this out, detailed HTML props, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so type-wise, this isn't the safest thing to do, but you could add a return type so that it's actually valid properties that you return here. Anyways, but this is also a way to use the matcher. So we don't like render different elements. We render the same element, but we return different props for that element based on some state. So when we are in an invalid state, it's just disabled. There's not even an on click there. And when we're valid, it's of course not disabled, and we add the on click of dispatching as save. Cool. Yeah, this is add preparation item. Why don't we have add? Oh, there we do. Add preparation item. And then the last thing was image source. Yeah, I don't think we use that here. We actually use that with the image there. Cool. That's it for now. Yeah, as I said, oh yeah, I actually forgot what we were supposed to do this stream. We were supposed to write down the values for React states, like why is it at the abstraction level it is? What is it like trying to solve? So that people understand better why it works the way it works, and it's designed the way it is designed. But maybe we can do that later. Yeah, let's do that later. I will continue refactoring this, and yeah, so we have a couple of things to do. Write the values for the project, and then we have that Firebase thing that we could refactor to the latest version.